Hello, today we're talking about productivity with a list of 1-minute habits that won't just save you time, but will give you back a disproportionate amount of value, clarity, and efficiency. Let's get started. When you start working on a task, start a stopwatch. This has a couple of benefits. The first one is that it will give you an idea of how long it takes to complete a task of a specific complexity. And very often, you will probably discover that, especially for daunting tasks, tough tasks, things that maybe you didn't even want to work on because of their perceived complexity, it takes actually less than you thought. The other benefit is that it will keep you more productive by helping you avoid taking breaks too early. If you wanted to take a break and you realized you are maybe only 3 minutes in, you may think twice and decide to continue working on that task. Track expenses as soon as they happen. All you need is a little notebook and a pen. And what you do is this: as soon as you spend some money, take this out and record 3 things, just 3 things. The date, the item you bought, and the amount you spent. This is it. If you want to go really fancy, add another column and keep track of the rolling total of how much you've spent during the month. This little change will completely transform your ability to track your money and manage your finances. And by the way, I recommend using pen and paper. I know that it's possible to keep track of everything using your iPhone, but the immediacy of this is just unbeatable. Learn a new shortcut per day. For example, you are in Apple Notes, there is a task that you want to mark as completed. Instead of grabbing your mouse and clicking on it to toggle the completion, you can use the Command-Shift-U shortcut. That saves you time. Or if you're navigating a very long text, you can use Option arrow to jump from one word to the next, or maybe Command arrow to jump directly to the end or the beginning of a sentence. All these things compounded will end up saving you maybe half an hour a day, maybe even an hour, depending on the shortcut. So make sure that you invest 1 minute a day discovering and applying a new shortcut. Find a standard and easy way to capture ideas or tasks on the fly. You can use Apple Notes on your phone, you can use a little journal. It doesn't really matter provided it's fast. On many occasions, we have great ideas, or we remember that we have to do things, and then we end up forgetting them because we didn't record them. So find a standard and fast way to jot down your thoughts. Use the system that you want, provided it's fast, and it will transform your ability to do something with those thoughts. Save time by setting up text replacements for bits of text or templated responses, or maybe even emojis that you use frequently. It saves you time not only because it saves you the effort of typing maybe your address or mobile number every time, but on many occasions, it saves you the time to actually go and look for that bit of information. So spend a minute creating a text replacement in your settings on your Mac, for example, so that you automate this little bit of text. Write your contact notes as soon as you finish a call or a meeting with someone. In order to develop relationships, you need to remember what people said the next time you talk to them. So spend a minute after each call, after each meeting, just to jot down the key bits of information that they gave you, the key concerns they had, the key questions they asked, the things that they wanted to do, so that you can read these things before the next call and further develop that relationship. I have a video on this channel around the subject of building relationships with people with an automation, which I recommend you watch if you're interested in this thing. But long story short is to develop a relationship with someone, a client, a relative, a friend. You need to be able to continue conversations, sometimes after weeks or even months. So spending 1 minute jotting down important things for them will greatly help developing those relations. Check a random Wikipedia article once a day. It takes less than a minute. There is even a link on the Wikipedia page to open a random article. And given how specific and vast Wikipedia is, it is pretty much guaranteed that whatever is presented in front of you will be new to you. So skim through the text, see if you find something interesting, and if not, at least you will have learned something new. Clean up 1 contact per day from your contacts list. You know what happens? We keep saving mobile numbers, email addresses, and so on, even for people that we will never contact again in our lives. And our contacts lists keep growing and growing and growing. And when we are looking for someone, it's actually kind of difficult to get to that person because we have so many records. So get into the habit of cleaning up one contact per day, spending 1 minute, deciding first of all whether you want to keep that number, keep that record in the first place. And if that's the case, get into that record and clean it up by removing unused contact numbers, email addresses that they don't check, adding notes and so on, so that your contact list stays relevant and useful. Turn off unwanted notifications. Notifications are not a problem in isolation. It's their combined constant beeping that can really reduce your ability to concentrate. So every time a notification pops up, think about whether it really adds value, and if it doesn't, switch it off. The real value doesn't really come from, or doesn't just come from the 30, maybe 40 minutes that you save from interruptions. It's the actual preservation of deep work periods. Unsubscribe from email newsletters as soon as you get them. Now, there are two ways to decide what to eliminate and what to keep, and see if you spot the difference. One way is to delete things when you're sure they are useless. The other approach is to keep things when you're sure they are important. These two approaches completely change the threshold after which you decide to eliminate or keep something. If you only eliminate things when you're sure that they are useless, you end up keeping pretty much everything. On the other side, if you only keep things that are interesting and useful to you, you end up eliminating lots of things that don't reach that threshold. So I suggest you use the same approach with your email newsletters. If you receive a newsletter and it's not useful, it's not important, then immediately click on the button to unsubscribe. In Apple Mail, there is even that little link that allows you to unsubscribe with one click. So use that button and see your life improve. Triage your emails during very short breaks. For example, if you are queuing, if you're waiting for something, waiting for the bus, you've got a spare minute, open your mail program and just go through your list of new emails, deleting the ones you don't need. This is the only thing you need to do, delete the clutter. And then you can process your emails later on during the day whenever you do these things. It's just a little habit to simplify your digital lives by removing the things you don't need during this very quick triage period. Spend a minute a day eliminating duplicate photos from your phone. We've all been in the same situations, taking lots of very similar photos at events, and the only results that we get is that our memories in our phones gets fuller and fuller and fuller, and at some point it will be impossible to take new photos. So go through your daily photos once a day, spend a minute eliminating all the duplicates, keep the best, and eliminate the rest, and declutter your photo library. Every time you take a note, try and connect it to an existing note which is already in your personal knowledge management system. Whatever system you use, connection between notes is something that will make them more powerful and more useful in the long term. So every time you jot something down, try and think for, 30 seconds of whether there is already a note in your system that could be linked to this one. And if that connection exists, make it explicit using a link. I've got a video on this channel about how to link notes. Feel free to watch that. But the overall idea is notes in isolation are not as powerful as a web of interconnected notes. Body multitasking. Now, I've said several times on this channel that multitasking is actually bad for productivity. But in this case, I talk about joining together an active piece of work your brain is focused on with some mechanical repetitive work. For example, keep one of those rolling mats under your desk so you can roll your foot on it when you're focusing on something else, and that in the long term will help you prevent some plantar fasciitis and other health diseases, and it doesn't take you any time to actually do it. A very important, very small change that becomes very important is to fill up your water bottle before you start working at your desk. Not only water is good for you, so you should stay hydrated, but having the water there prevents you from having to pause and then losing focus just to go and drink something. This one is not a 1-minute habit, it's actually a 2-minute habit. Every 30 minutes, do 2 minutes of movement, 2 minutes of exercise. It could be going up and down the stairs, lifting some weights, doing some push-ups, whatever you want. Put a timer, and after 28 minutes, you do 2 minutes of movement. You won't even notice it, you probably won't even break a sweat, but it's great for your health according to research. Add things that you do not want to work on to your not to-do list. This thing takes only 1 minute and over time will create a framework that will enable you to say no more quickly and more confidently when things don't align with your goals, with your values, or your interests. I've described this thing in a video on this channel, so look it up if you want, but it's a very important thing to know, not only the things you want to work on, but also the things that you do not want to work on. Prepare your outfit the night before. This saves you decision time in the morning when you're still half asleep and you have to decide what to put on. And if you have space and enough combinations, you can push it even further by preparing your entire week in advance. Set 1 to 3 daily priorities for the next day, the evening before. This will save you decision time in the morning, and instead of having to go through your entire list of tasks to pick the ones that you want to work on, you can hit the ground running immediately in the morning. I've created a video on this channel which is called the Priority Portal, in which I describe the way I do it. Look it up if you're interested. Use password managers. A password manager not only saves you time when you're trying to remember a password, it allows you to set stronger passwords. The reason is that it's so difficult to remember all the credentials we have across all websites that people tend to do the same thing. They use the same email address and the same password across multiple websites. And the problem with this is that as soon as there is a data leak on one website, those credentials can be stored and tried across a big range of other websites. And at some point, one of those websites, you will have logged in using the same credentials, and so hackers can take control of that account. So a password manager saves you time and protects your privacy better. Create a meal plan for the week. A meal plan will speed up your grocery shop as you will know what to get. It will reduce your impulse purchases, which is normally stuff that you don't want to eat. It will lead to healthier eating because of this. And it will prevent that very dreadful moment that happens every day when we ask ourselves, what should we eat today? And also, it gets easier and easier because once you've created 3 to 4 meal plans, then you can simply recycle them over and over, maybe with small adjustments to eat more fruits that are in season and so on. Get into the habit of giving descriptive names to your files when you save them. My suggestion would be that instead of creating very complicated folder structures that, years down the line you will have to remember how to navigate to get to a specific file, use very descriptive names that you can search for. And if you get into the habit of using your natural language to name a file, well, that's going to be exactly the same language you will use to search for something a few years down the line. And the search function of your computer is definitely way faster and more accurate than you traversing your folder structure. Respond to quick emails immediately. One of the sort of rule of thumbs in the productivity world is that if a task takes less than a couple of minutes, you do it immediately. Well, the same thing applies to emails. If responding to an email takes a minute or so, do it immediately. And once you've done it, remove that email from your inbox. Make sure that your inbox is not cluttered so you can focus on the stuff that matters. I hope you've learned a few interesting tricks. Let me know in the comments below. But for now, thank you very much for watching and see you soon.